The Iron Age hill fort of Tapo North, more than 1,800 feet up in the hills of Aberdeenshire. Ian Ralston is one of countless archaeologists who have climbed to this cold summit, seeking to explain why the fort's high walls are built not of loose stones, but strangely of melted rock. Rock that will melt only at furnace heat, more than 1,000 degrees centigrade.
It's absolutely solid. In places one can kick it, it won't disintegrate. It's as if it's cemented together. In fact, what appears to have happened is that at some stage, presumably with great heat, the rocks have melted, or at least partly melted. And here, for example, we can see one bit where the rock has gone really glassy. It's been absolutely molten here.
Ian Ralston, in an ambitious attempt to crack the mystery, decided to build his own Iron Age fort.
The idea here is that we hope to reconstruct what one of these walls looked like before it was vitrified. We know that these walls must contain considerable quantities of large timber beams. These have been recorded, and sometimes they also turn up on the forts that have been vitrified.
Professional dry stone wallers toiled for days to build the wall of rocks laced with timber. For the wall itself to catch fire, tons of loose timber must have been stacked against the face.
This, as regards authenticity, I think is a very good attempt at one of these walls. Of course, the main thing is it's only part of the circuit of a defence. We've only built something like 6 or 8 metres in length. So it's a part model, but that part, I think, is fairly accurate.
Within minutes of the fire being lit, the wood stacked on the outside is well alight. Within an hour, the framework of wooden beams has caught fire, carrying the flames to the heart of the wall. It is here in the centre that enough heat may build up to melt the stones. Outside, they are already beginning to crack. After several hours and many tons of wood, a load of old furniture has to be commandeered from the local dustmen. It is the only way to keep the temperature up. Later, yet another consignment of wood, the 6th of the day, arrives to keep the fires burning. As night falls over Aberdeen, weary helpers begin to realize the true extent of the mystery of the vitrified forts. To wonder not only how the fort builders could achieve the searing temperatures needed to melt the rock, but how they managed to drag vast quantities of wood up to the hilltops with only primitive transport. The morning after, and deep inside the wall, the fort is still burning. "22 hours after the fire was first lit, it's time to demolish the wall and see whether the stones at its core have melted. At first sight, the result looks disappointing. There are no ramparts of fused stone. The search is now on for evidence that any rocks have melted.
Yeah, that's it. The rock here has melted completely. Look, it's bubbled on one side. Great. God, it's hot. Oh, there's some more here.
This experiment suggests it would have taken half the trees in Scotland to vitrify all the forts. So we only deepen the mystery. Such things as the crystal skull and vitrified forts are intriguing and puzzling, but they don't shake our preconceived ideas about history. Yet there are other artifacts which do just that, if they are what they seem to be.
This man, Dr. Arne Egebrecht, director of a West German museum, has no doubt at all that there is at least one astonishing example of ancient technology which is 2,000 years ahead of its time. He found it in an exhibition of treasures from ancient Iraq, a pottery jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod discovered in Baghdad. He believes they are components of an electric battery, made 2,000 years before batteries were invented in the West.
I decided to check it, and for that purpose, we got made a replica. Here you see the replica, the Baghdad battery. You see here a ceramic pot, you see a copper cylinder, and you see the iron rod here. All replicas. Now I have here a voltmeter. And this voltmeter shows on the scale a distance from 0, a quarter of a volt, to half a volt here, which we should reach by this battery. For that purpose, I combine now the voltmeter and the battery with these wires. Now, one wire is fixed to the rod, the other one is fixed to the copper cylinder. To get it to work, we need only some acid. And for that purpose, a bunch of grapes should help us and should do it. Here I have the grapes and here a glass. And in this, I'm putting now some of the grapes. And with a wooden stick, I am pressing the juice out of it. I hope I get enough so that we see on the scale how the voltmeter is working.
The grape acid battery delivers almost half a volt. Could it have been used for gilding ancient treasure?
To show you that this can be done with this battery, I prepared an experiment.
The technique may have been to immerse a small silver statuette in a gold cyanide solution and electroplate it. The implications for museum directors are chilling. Treasures they always assumed to be solid gold may merely have been gilded. And indeed, in a matter of minutes, the bottom half of this silver statuette acquires the sheen of gold.
This experiment shows that it is possible to do it, and that also in ancient times it might have been possible to have these batteries used for such gold plating processes.
If this is indeed an electric battery, well, one can only register astonishment because it's 2,000 years ahead of its time. Still, it's possible we have completely misinterpreted its function. It may be something quite different, like a container for scrolls. But from almost the same era, there's a device about which there's now no dispute. And here's a friend I've been bullying for 20 years to complete his researches on it.
Professor Derek de Sawyer Price of Yale University. It was in Athens, among a group of statues brought up in 1900 from a ship wrecked around the time of the birth of Christ, that Price made his discovery. The ship sank off the island of Antikythera near Crete. Amongst the haul from the shipwreck were some fragments of corroded bronze. They fascinated the professor when he came across them, but he needed the help of the Greek Atomic Energy Commission to examine them.
There was a good colleague, Dr. Karakalos, who had been experimenting with gamma rays. He was able to take a gamma radiograph of the main fragment in the museum, and as soon as I saw it, the effect was dramatic. You could see that inside the fragment, where it wasn't visible to the naked eye, were all little gear wheels. You could see the teeth plainly, and you could even count teeth. This had such a big effect that there was hidden evidence that Dr. Karakalos was able to get permission, and using much better X-ray equipment could make X-ray photographs of all the gear wheels in the interior of the machine. These photographs were so good that each gear could be located, and even if we only had part of a gear, we could actually count the teeth. See, there is a wheel complete with all the gear teeth, absolutely countable.
From the X-rays, Professor Price reconstructed the machine, now known as the Antikythera mechanism. It was a wooden box with bronze plates. A handle moves interconnected dials at the front and back. The innards of the mechanism are a complex mesh of cogwheels and gears, until now concealed in the heart of the fragments.
That wheel is the one you see here. More gearing at the back, and you turn the handle and everything goes round, all geared together in quite sophisticated clockwork.
It was designed, he believes, as a computer to show the varying cycles of the moon, sun, and planets. A device that, by all previous knowledge, simply ought not to have existed for another 2,000 years. Its maker had perfected a system of differential gearing. When Professor Price discovered this, he had found a unique demonstration of the lost wisdom of the ancients.
It is just incredible that the Greeks could invent this principle of the differential gear. It is so complicated that it contains, in essence, all of the line that led right through to modern clockwork, to the computer, and indeed to the machine age, and everything that distinguishes our civilization from everything that went before. And the whole line began right here with this one unique relic.
The Antikythera computer and the Baghdad battery, if indeed it is a battery, represent two of the great ifs of history, because they're 2,000 years ahead of their time. If the societies that produced them had continued to develop their technologies, by now it would be 4000 AD. By this time, we would not merely have sent a few men to the moon. We would have colonized all the stars visible to the naked eye.